Hello there. Now, the fact is that someone drove a car through a Christmas market in Magdeburg in Germany, causing, at the moment, 5 deaths and numerous injuries, some of them very serious indeed. Our thoughts first and foremost must be to their families and friends, to hope and pray that those involved make a speedy recovery. But what we must not do is get taken in by some of the misleading hype surrounding this case, because nothing adds up. For a start, how did the perpetrator defeat the security measures around the Christmas market? And what we are being told to believe is that the driver of this vehicle, alleged to be Shia Saudi Arabian doctor Taleb al-Abdulmohsen, was a far-right inspired terrorist who ploughed into a Christmas market to make his point against the German government that gave him asylum from the Sunni faction-led Saudi Arabia. And that for me is the crux of the matter. Whoever they are, or from wherever they come, I want them kept away from me and mine until we are sure they are safe to be around. We have become too trusting and tolerant as far as I'm concerned in the West. Now, the German government had already rejected calls from Saudi Arabia to repatriate the good doctor. And this Sunni versus Shia versus German government versus Saudi Arabia thing has thrown up all manner of speculation. The Telegraph, for example, is saying that both the left and the right of politics are now using this case as a political football to try and claim it proves their world viewpoint. Oh, and here's a snippet from Politico earlier this year talking about Russian and Chinese links to the AfD, the Alternative for Germany, where the report talked about these links and the fact that those allegations are not hurting AfD support. That was glaringly evident at a recent party gathering in the city of Magdeburg, located in a part of the country in the state of Saxony-Anhalt in the former East Germany, where some of the party's most extreme politicians and most fervent supporters are based. What better way to attack the German far right than to do this atrocity in their backyard, where AfD supporters might also well be shopping? Now, as an example of mis and disinformation, here is the alleged Magdeburg terrorist and mass murderer talking to the RARE Foundation in the USA. RARE being Rise, Align, Ignite, Reclaim, to combat well-orchestrated and dangerous victims of liberty.
And I'm saying this as a leftist. I'm not on the right. And what I discovered as a leftist is that leftists are the worst criminals on this planet.
So someone who the press tells us is far right calls himself, on camera, a leftist, but then goes on to call leftists the biggest criminals on the planet. Was that all just to mislead or divert maybe? Remember, he is a head doctor. But will we still be led down the path to mental illness over this? So to me, I would not believe a word of anything he's spoken about and or written, because what you've just seen is him sort of contradicting himself on camera. And he was not on a watch list, and is, or was, practicing doctoring at a specialist psychiatric facility in Bernburg, about 30 miles south of Magdeburg, so I'm led to believe. And after all of this social media activities of his we've seen, and he's still practicing as a doctor? And look at the info flooding social media about this case right now. and no call for that speculation to be controlled in any way. Which is in stark contrast to what happened directly after the Southport stabbings, isn't it? Yes, I know the alleged perpetrator in the Southport case was a minor at the time, but that quickly passed. He's over 18 now. And now there is an eerie silence about that case, which even had the Speaker of the House of Commons shutting down democratic debate about it in our mother of all parliaments. And a man in Pakistan was arrested for spreading misinformation in the UK about that case. Remember that? Even to the point now of shutting down the publication by gagging order of anything said between Tommy Robinson and his visitors in Wood Hill Prison, the same prison as the alleged Southport perpetrator now resides in. Now, Germany has its own version of these misinformation and disinformation laws. Oh, yes. But I've seen no mobilisation of them against social media, nor arrests for those the state has decided are pushing mis and disinformation. Maybe this mis and disinformation is exactly what someone wants in order to sow division. Maybe they now think that spraying conflicting evidence all over the place is far more effective at causing division, chaos and fear than shutting it down is. Shutting info down points fingers directly at the authorities. Not doing so causes mass confusion. And if you want to wreck a trial and a country, what better way to do it? Anyway, just before I bring Richard into the conversation, I'll just ask you to be careful in the comments. They might come after you later. So, Richard, what do you think about all this?
Oh, Jeff, this is a very difficult subject to tackle. I've written a little blurb to sort of direct me through this. What I'm about to say is a commentary about what I have observed being said on both social media and the mainstream media, and is all to be taken with a pinch of salt. Everything I say, every last word of it, because there may be a lot of misinformation out there on both sides, as was the case with Southport. And differentiating between what is misinformation and disinformation and what is truth is very difficult to navigate. So please bear with us. I try to read the room, and we must all trust the official line, of course, and not fall into the snares of idle speculation by those deemed by the authorities to be far-right conspiracy theorists, must we? No. Let me be blunt. Something of a pure evil nature took place in Germany at a Christmas market, just as it has done before in Germany, in Berlin. And this is not a new phenomenon. But something is very off and amiss with this specific attack. And we also hear of attacks in Sweden and Norway taking place on the same day, although they are being reported upon to a much lesser extent. No real questions are being asked over if there was any coordination between these attacks. Only a narrative is being propagated of the lone wolf with far-right sympathies, even though a video, which you just showed earlier, has emerged of the alleged attacker identifying strongly as a lefty. And the the far-left narrative is being sort of underplayed here, and the far-right narrative is being pushed now by all the mainstream sources that I have seen so far. But let's look at this as dispassionately as we can and go for cold, hard facts, or rather what we are being told are cold, hard facts by the authorities and the mainstream media. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but there we go. Fact number one: a car was driven into a Christmas market with fatalities and many injured by someone who somehow managed to navigate the obstructions placed to prevent such an attack. I find that very strange, Jeff, personally. All motivational factors, though, must be based and viewed within the context of the target, the Christmas market, and the nature of this target, the Christmas market, because it was filled with families. You know. So I ask, who would such an unspeakable attack benefit, and who would it harm? I think it's safe to say this attack would have been undertaken to cause maximum trauma to the population and the nation of Germany and Europe by targeting a densely packed area filled with children and families, whilst simultaneously attacking a symbol of the Christianized West, a Christmas market. Now ask yourself, who would have cheered after the attack? And believe me, some people have cheered after this attack, this sickening attack. Also, ask yourself, who felt anguish and pain in the wake of this attack? We are being told by the mainstream media that the alleged perpetrator of this attack is an intelligent man with a professional understanding of the human mind and human response through his psychiatric expertise. And he also worked in a hospital in Germany. So as a professional with an expert understanding of the human mind and human behavior, he would have clearly understood the precise repercussions of his actions. Unless, of course, the alleged perpetrator was suffering from some mental illness that would have obviously posed a risk to others, which begs the question, how is it that he was working in a professional capacity at a German hospital if he posed such a risk, especially in light of his social media posts, which were very revealing and revealed an ongoing threat to the public by himself? Very strange that he was able to remain in post with such a controversial social media history, don't you think? What do you think of that one, Jeff?
Yeah, well, it is all a bit strange, isn't it? I mean, I've looked at various parts of this social media thing, and it's all conflicting, and there seems to be it jumping all over the place. There doesn't seem to be any, if someone is sort of on the right, they don't go around telling everybody they're on the left, do they? Unless they're out to spread disinformation and misinformation themselves. All seems rather strange. And he was working in the facility that he was working in, put out a statement, which I read just a moment before he came online, where they're saying, oh, we didn't know anything about this. We're really shocked. I thought employers these days were trawling people's social media for indications that they might be off message against their own companies. Isn't that how this works these days? That's a bit strange, isn't it?
Yeah, and let us not forget this alleged perpetrator of this terrorist incident was high enough a profile figure to be approached by the BBC for an interview. And thus his social media output could hardly be described as obscure and unknown. After all, the BBC has an entire fact-checking department, and this fact-checking department is of an impeccable standard when it comes to research, is it not? And also, just forget the fact that the Saudi authorities allegedly said this man identified as a Shia extremist that he was identified. They identified him, I should say, as a Shia extremist in their nation, which is Sunni. They were in the middle of a crackdown upon funded and embedded fanatics from Iran, who are, to a larger extent, Saudi enemies. Yet initial reports tell us the alleged perpetrator was not on the radar of the security services in Germany as being identified as a person of high risk, even after 3 warnings that he was from Saudi Arabia. Also, I find it very strange how they clearly knew who he wasn't so soon after the attack, that he wasn't a person of risk, because that's what they said initially, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
I mean, yeah, the elephant in the room is if you are anti-Islam, pro-AFD and a supporter of Elon Musk and Geert Wilders and Tommy Robinson, you wouldn't attack a Christian market and threaten retribution for the treatment of refugees, would you? I mean, that is the last thing you would do, because you would instantly become a negative advertisement for that which you propose to support. And as an intelligent man with a background in understanding the human mind and condition and the human condition, this alleged attacker would have been acutely aware of this response. Yes, it is beyond contestation, in my mind, unless there was so deep-seated a psychological issue within himself. But as I've already said, surely that would have been flagged up, and would have been very hard to hide to the relevant authorities and regulatory bodies in the German health system, or do no such safeguards exist in Germany? After all, Jordan Peterson has been pulled up by what appears to be professional regulatory bodies in the same professional field as himself in Canada, due to his social media output, which I believe he was requested to have retraining on. So a similar situation, one would think, in terms of how regulatory bodies follow contentious social media output, but clearly not. What do you think?
Well, it is very strange. I just find this whole thing that this guy seems to have had a bit of a social media history, and no one seems to have looked at it until this morning, basically. And what happened to all the reporting? What's happened to all this? The people reporting this stuff to the police and all the rest of it. It's very, very strange indeed to me that he just suddenly arose from nowhere. Now, there was one guy, one security expert, who said this particular scenario of an ex person of a certain faith suddenly becoming a terrorist for the far right, supposedly, was something that came left field, completely out of the blue. They just didn't understand. It wasn't on their radar, and that tells me a lot about the shadowy nature of it all. It just doesn't. None of this adds up. None of this adds up at all.
No, it doesn't. I mean, then there's the conspiracy theory that the alleged attacker, was not in fact an atheist, as has been reported, and he was actually a devout member of a certain religion, using unsaid, using something that this unsaid and unspecified religions will approve of, something which is quite strange. A tactic, we shall say, of subterfuge, where a devotee is able to spread false information and lies. Let's say with a fake social media presence and public persona in terms of a devotee's beliefs in terms of how he intends to cause.
Say it. You mean takia? Yes, we know what you mean.
To cause maximum harm to
well-known phrase.
That the devotee is supposed to support. But that seems highly unlikely, because the authorities would flock to put a gagging order on those that this individual would be supposedly supporting. Yes, someone identified, as well. I just find it very strange. I'm just going to leave you take over that for a moment there, Jeff, because I'm just getting wound up.
I've seen it on YouTube. People are going around in circles on this one, and I think that is the actual aim, is to get people confused, and when in actual fact the real sort of perpetrators are hidden somewhere else. It's just beyond comprehension that this one single guy had all these, unless he is a complete schizophrenic of some sort. I'm not saying he is. It's just, what else? What other explanation could there be? Now,
I don't know. Again, this is speculation. We just don't. It's sort of speculating without speculating. We are speculating upon the speculation. That's all we're doing, or rather, reporting upon speculation. None of what you or I are saying right now is a fact. We are just looking at a situation with a broad brush, because everyone's trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense.
Yes, it is. It's very strange. Now, the German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, has described this attack as a dreadful tragedy, adding that Christmas markets are usually a joyful place, and has promised a full inquiry. Now, this really does put the dampeners on Christmas, doesn't it? Now, which sort of person would like to see that happen?
Again, this is who benefits from this and who doesn't.
Yeah.
If you were like this alleged attacker, if you would like what has been reported, trying to push against Islam, then why would you attack a Christian market? And the thing that's just really bugging me, to be honest with you, is he's meant to be a supporter of Geert Wilders and Tommy Robinson. Now, I find it very strange. This is just coincidence, of course, that Tommy has been gagged before he's unable to make a response to what's happened in this attack. And it happens on the same day. I don't know. It just seems a bit of a coincidence. And it probably is. I mean, if it isn't, you know, I mean, it does make the whole scenario look to be borderline orchestrated, to have, you know, as well, to have so much information readily available about this perpetrator.
Yes.
This alleged perpetrator. Why do we know so much about this person? You know, there's very little in the way of filtering information to the public. They're coming straight out. And, you know, it's very strange because so much information being available to the public, I find very odd, because that means that instantly the authorities, they weren't too concerned about potential accomplices. They were quite clear. Oh, we knew straight from the off that this is a lone wolf attack. Or there is another side to this. Are they putting out information so quickly because they have seen what happened with Southport, and in the vacuum of information, because they feared that there would be something terrible that would happen? There could be an element of that. I am playing devil's advocate here because this is a very difficult situation to you know, approach. People have died. You know, here we are speculating about what's gone on.
Yeah.
And these are human lives. It's terrifying, utterly terrifying. How many people went to a Christmas market today looking over their shoulder? How many went up to a policeman with a gun and said, thank you. Thank you for being there? Because that's the way we should all feel right now. We shouldn't be in this bloody position.
No, we shouldn't need police with arms in sometimes you just think back and you go, I'm always giving the police a hard time of twerking and joining in with the crowds. But this is the complete opposite, isn't it? A guy with a gun in a police uniform is looking at everybody, wondering whether they're going to have to, you know, do the business. And that's a complete different scenario. Yeah, it's and the whole point for me is, when borders are stripped of their powers, when you take them out, when you remove it, our protections disappear, just go away like clouds, all our protections. And because there are no borders around the country that are being enforced properly, we have to be careful with our own borders around us, our own protections, and protections around our property and around our friends and around our communities. And that is not healthy at all. That is just not. If we want to do this properly, we've got to get our borders back under control. And we've got to prove that people are safe before they're allowed to mingle, as it were. I know people will get in, the bad boys will get in, but we don't want to throw the borders open and just say, come one and all. That's just ridiculous. Yes. And I'm just wondering whether we should have detention instead of watch lists. If people are on watch list, if people come from abroad, you know, like on asylum seek or whatever, and they have to go on a watch list, shouldn't they be detained, do you think, put into a detention centre until we've proved what's going on?
Yes.
I don't know.
I don't think that's an unreasonable thing. I mean, the problem is, as soon as you start speculating like this, you get accused of being racist.
Yeah.
I mean, this is protection of people. You know, there's clearly, in certain parts of the world, life has a very different value. I mean, this is regardless of what a person's religion is. There are parts of the world where there's more than one religion out there, for instance, or ideology, where life is a lot cheaper. And I could go into countries which are atheist. I mean, this is one of the points I was about to make as well, because if this man is an atheist, do we now have a problem with radical extremist atheism?
No,
that's another question.
That's a thought, isn't it? You know, if everyone's saying he's an atheist, well, that means that we now have to have we've got one set of demographic with the watch list for them. We've got the far right, which is huge, it seems, and they have to be watched. Now we have the atheists; they have to be watched as well. Good Lord.
Well, a lot of what the press are reporting right now, which I'm finding very annoying, is that this whole narrative about this individual having sympathy for far right, we'll call them figures, right, who are not far right, but aside from that, the whole premise of this is based upon things that this individual has said and written on social media. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, personally, I'm not going to trust a man who drives a car into an effing market with families in. I'm not going to trust a single word that person says.
Nope.
Sorry. I'm not going to. So why are they pushing this rubbish out there? We don't know what this man's motives are. We don't know. Why do they trust him so implicitly and so immediately?
Yeah.
Winds me up.
No, it doesn't, does it? I wish you'd calm down. No, I know exactly what you mean. I just don't understand it either. It's like one minute everything on social media is to be completely mistrusted. It's all misinformation, and then suddenly you must believe it all because he said it there, and what? Say that again. What are we meant to believe? Are we meant to be a bit suspicious about everything that's said? Or when you tell us, or when the establishment tells us that, oh, that's what he said, so it must be true. All right, then. I don't.
Well, at the end of the day, as well, I must add a caveat here as well. We don't know if this man actually, the person who on social media, if he drove that car. We don't know anything. Okay, we've just been told it. So,
yeah,
we don't know the truth of this until it has been established in a court of law. We just have to accept everything we are being told. However, the premise of this individual who has been identified, of him being far right, is based upon what he has said, this alleged attacker.
Yeah.
So that has to be added. Sorry,
yeah.
You have to do that in this day and age. You have to add your caveats.
Now, just before we went online, I got a message saying that Tommy's Twitter account had started a live stream, and it was a test live stream. Now, I haven't seen it yet, and I'm assuming it's going to be the same as the last test stream on X by his account, and it got more views than most of the lefty press did. So I'm wondering if they're doing it again just to see, because he's in prison, he won't be allowed to live stream out of there. Someone else might be just testing the system to make sure it works and make sure they got everything right, or maybe one of his team is going to be live streaming out later. I don't know, but I just still remember seeing that the last test live stream that Tommy did got more views than most of the lefty press got, and it didn't. It was just a picture of a room, live streaming a wall or something.
Yeah,
it was hilarious.
Look, at the end of the day, this just shows, that why have they put this gagging order on Tommy right now? I find this timing very strange. Very strange. It's almost as if they were expecting something. I'm not saying they were, but that's the way it sort of appears. Because timing usually, in my mind, reveals the nature of a situation.
Yeah,
the sequence of events is very telling usually. But, who knows? Maybe they were, and not necessarily this specific event, but because there were the Christmas markets approaching and warnings being put out in the press, they were expecting some event to take place, and therefore they would try and find those individuals who are deemed to be far right. They try to keep that narrative down as much as possible, because everyone has to accept the status quo. Everyone. We all have to be good little boys and girls and accept the given narrative by the authorities. Do not question it. But I do have to say, everyone, please, I'm very angry and emotional about this. I saw Stephen Wolf last night on GB News. He was quite emotional and angry. A lot of people are angry. There's nothing wrong with being angry, by the way. It's what you do with your anger that does matter. Constructive. Think. Be careful what you say. Be careful what you put on social media. All you have to do right now is think constructively in terms of politics and getting behind the political parties that will not accept what is going on in Europe.
Yeah.
There we go.
And thank you, iDoppler, for your contribution. Not quite sure that says Alana riding her time travel sled. Not sure about that one. I don't know. Or maybe I've missed something. But thanks anyway. Jeff Taylor, I wish Trump would send in our American special forces to rescue Tommy. That would be a thing, wouldn't it? So, I'm not sure that would ever happen, but he might send some help over in the form of of money, you never know, do you?
Yes, and thank you to Shifty Squiff for your super chat. Please discuss stakeholder capitalism and what videos about on YouTube. It explains everything. Andy the Cabbie, who's brilliant, by the way, did a recent video on it. And we did actually have a little chat about this last night, I believe, on stakeholder capitalism.
Yeah, it comes down to the fact that we live in a share holder society, capitalism, where if you own something, you have control of it. Stakeholder means completely different. It's everybody else has a say in what. Basically, it takes the power away from the shareholders, the people who own things, and it's all this march towards communism and owning nothing.
Yeah,
It won't matter. I mean, the biggest example of stakeholder is if you've got £1 billion in the bank in the future, when they brought in credit check, carbon credit checks and stuff like that, and social credits. So you've been a bad boy, so you've got 0 social credits, but £1 billion in the bank. Because you've got 0 credits, social credits, you can't buy anything with that money, because you have to spend your social credits. You have to have social credits to allow you to spend your billions. And that is the state and all the stakeholders who've decided that the planet and blah, 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 everything else is so important that they control your money. So you own that money, but it's useless. That's stakeholder capitalism.
Yeah. But I just, do you know what? I've been thinking about how we were going to approach this all day, Jeff. And what's happened is absolutely heartbreaking. And as I said, a lot of people have gone to Christmas markets now, right across Europe. And they have all been looking over their shoulder, like as if they weren't going to be doing that anyway. When you see a massive police presence, you're going to look over your shoulder, because you know something is wrong. We all know that something right across Europe is very, very wrong. And I think we all know how this potentially could play out. And none of us want this. We all want this all to go away. And believe me, so do the authorities. They want this problem to go away. But how they're managing it is another matter. How the problem goes away to them might be a very different way that we want the problem to go away. I'm very, very worried about how integration is taking place in Europe. That's my problem. And I think that integration has to take place. If there's no integration, then what comes next? Really, what comes next? Terrifying world we're living in. Terrifying.
Well, I just think the establishment, in the general terms, when we're talking about the sort of worldwide vision of it, the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, know that there will be huge problems for the next 200 or 300 years with all this mashing everything together, just crunching it all together. They know that, but what they think is that in 500 years' time, we'll look back on these times as collateral damage for the perfection that they then will live in. You get the idea? If we can, it's like a war. We'll fight and we'll send the soldiers to their death, and then at the end of it, we'll have won, and it'll all be wonderful. As we found from every single war that there's ever been.
But I don't think we've got 200-300 years of this, or 100. I don't think we've got 10 years of this. And I'm sorry to keep coming back to this subject, AI. If AI is controlling the medium of exchange, we'll call it, but money previously has always been the medium of exchange. But if all of a sudden everybody is subject to the same law and same rules when it comes to the medium of exchange and who gets what, these situations go away very, very quickly. I mean, let's not forget a central bank. I'm not singing the praises of it, by the way. I'm just saying how this is going to play out. I believe it's going to play out. So if you have a singular central bank digital currency, controlling all people, what they can do, what they can spend, monitoring everything you're doing. This is all very 1984, of course, conspiracy theory, even though central bank digital currencies are being very much talked about. Then things change and people will beg, please, to the authorities, please introduce the central bank digital currency as quick as possible so we can end all this conflict and non-integration.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah.
And Craggith, thanks very much for your contribution. I'm Scottish. It isn't quite as bad here yet, but if England falls, we won't be far behind. We need to unite and fight this. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we need to unite. We need to unite the kingdom, as someone is saying.
Well, the uniting of the kingdom. Jeff, you know that for a long time, I was always I'd seen the way that the Welsh in particular had been treated by England, and I was more of a, wanting Devo Max in Wales. For a long time, I wanted that. And there's one or two things that changed my mind. And because this is a problem we have going right through, not just Britain, but Europe. But there was a very, 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 very interesting thing that has come out recently about how ancient Britain, believe it or not, was quite a lot more unified than we think. And the proof was in Stonehenge. We all knew that the blue stones, the original blue stones of Stonehenge came from an existing stone circle in Wales, stones specifically from the Preseli Mountains. And we knew that the large Saracen stones came from, I think it was 15 miles of the location of Stonehenge. But it now turns out that I believe it's the altar stone came from potentially as far as Orkney, maybe not Orkney itself, but right at the top of Scotland. So what you had was almost like a unifying of the nation by unifying of these tribes. This is what Stonehenge could very much have symbolized, was a united kingdom. And I think that's quite fascinating that still in the public psyche to this day, that Stonehenge stands for something that is more than just some potential astronomical observatory to the stars. There's something more to it. So yeah, this has always been a united kingdom, and I wasn't fully aware of the implications of Stonehenge upon this concept, but it was definitely there. And we should come together. The coming together of Britain is all that will save us. We need to all be one nation, not far right, not far left, nothing, just one people with a common goal. And that's all I have to say on the matter.
Yes. Thanks again, iDocFler. And he says, Project Bluebeam fake alien attack. I do wonder about that. Is something coming? Who knows?
You never know.
Yes. Yeah. I was watching Ike from CD from 20 years ago, says David Gray. Yeah, he's been around a while now, hasn't he? Been around the block a few times, David. Yeah.
He's a nice chap. I met him once. He was lovely.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with people generally. Yes. Just trying to find... Jesus coming back. Alleluia, says Astrodine. Yep, I think that's probably nearer to the point. All right. Yeah, CBDC, that's central bank digital currency, would be their undoing. Parallel economy to a degree is necessary, says Marek Labar. Yeah, with the CBDC, it will be constructed in such a way that there cannot be a parallel economy because everything's what's called tokenized. That means if you want to buy a house, it has to go through an exact digital mirror of the real world. So if you sell the house to someone, they have to buy it physically and digitally. And that's where the CBDC comes in, because that's the digital transaction. Now, if you think you can bypass that by giving them, I don't know, 2 Rolls Royces for the house or something along those lines, over here, the digital mirror won't see that. So using the digital mirror, that house would, and those Rolls Royces would not change hands. They just would not change hands. So one of the sides could, after the transaction, say, I want my Rolls Royces back because they're still mine. And the other guy said, well, I'll take my own house back then. So there'd be no trust in this. That's the whole point. It's going to be mirrored in tokenization. And that's the most dangerous part, because the digital side, which is under the control of artificial intelligence, will be the driving factor.
Yes. Sorry, Jeff, something just caught my eye here in the Telegraph. It's just a minor headline. Suspect is Islamophobic former Muslim. No, he is.
All right, so that's it then. The Telegraph says so, then we must all believe it. Yeah, okay. Right, Richard.
There we go. There we go. Sorry, Jeff, we're all completely... I'm not saying that he isn't, but we just don't know at this point in time, because they're clearly taking his word for everything. And this is based upon a video which I did see earlier, what he says in a video. Okay, so you trust this man, do you? Fine, if that's the way you think.
Yes. Yes, Jeff Taylor, with all our money electronic, I wonder what happens when someone turns off the power. Oh, all the money defaults to the top. It just goes there immediately. That's the safety factor. Yeah. And the thing about these electronic databases, they'll all be backed up about 5 times. So if one goes down, it'll always be backed up. That's the thing anyway, until someone works out a way to hack through it all. There you go. Anyway, anything else out there, Richard?
To be honest with you, there's nothing I really think we should be covering.
Right,
I think there are other stories out there. But at the end of the day, I think we just need to conclude this, because I think this is a very sensitive subject, and there needs to be a certain level of respect for the dead as well in this, because here we are speculating upon horror. Nothing short of horror that has taken place and could happen again, and almost certainly, I'm afraid to say, will happen again somewhere at some point in time.
Yeah.
What the motivations behind this sort of attack is, we are going forward in the future, that we do not know. We are being told, though, now that the far right could have a component in this. And there we go. That's what the mainstream media are telling us. So we must believe it. We must not question it. Although we can push forward and discuss other theories, as long as they are identified, I believe, as theories.
Yes. And everything we've said today is a theory. Everything we've said is a theory, or a conspiracy theory, if you want. I just, after seeing what's been happening over the last few years and just looking at this, it just shows how little trust we have in the establishment and the forces of justice, isn't it? Just shows you how little trust we have in them these days. We get this feeling at every turn they're working against us, the ordinary people, all the time, and that's what leads to mistrust. And that's where we're at.
Yeah, but the thing is, this man might be everything that the establishment and the mainstream media are saying he is and was, in terms of his past actions. This could be a very, very real scenario, that he is everything that they say he is. The problem is, as you've just said, trust is gone. So that's why everybody is talking about what's happening. I mean, I have seen a few Middle Eastern commentators who have analysed the alleged attacker. And by the way, in case I've forgotten to say it, every reference I have made in this video is about an alleged attacker. Okay, we don't know anything until it's confirmed.
I think we made that clear.
Yes, I hope so. Now, the thing is, okay, look, I'm just going to go back to the start of this, right? Because there's too much misinformation out there. And if we don't trust who this person is on his word, then there's a reason for it. And there's a reason why we're not trusting the official narrative, because we know what's happened in the past.
Yeah.
That's it. I was going to go down on a very different route in this, but I've decided not to.
Yes.
It's very difficult to do. So, yeah, please, everyone, tonight, pray for the families of the victims and for the victims. There are many people who are very, very ill right now in a very serious condition in hospital, and we hope there's not going to be any further fatalities. And all those who have been hurt in this terrible attack, that they recover very shortly. Please say a little prayer tonight for those people.
Yeah.
I mean, people say, oh, we don't need to know, our prayers and thoughts with. Yes, we do. We do have to do that. That is something we should not stop doing just because we're not seeing the action that we want to see in this world. Another thing, Jeff, there's a lot of people who would like us to say some things right now.
Yeah, I know.
Which aren't true. Sometimes you have to say things that people don't want to hear. Even our supporters and followers, sometimes you have to say that which is true and that which we know, as opposed to that which people want to hear.
Yeah.
I have to add that.
Yes. Anyway, there's one way you can help save the nation a little bit by looking at the pledge and signing the pledge. It doesn't take much to do it. So find the right image yet. The pledge, www.thepledge.org.uk. If you could sign that and send it on to other people and just ask them to take a look. And if they like what they see, please ask them to sign it. It only takes a minute to do it. So, yeah, please do that. And what have you got to say, Richard? Your normal spiel?
Yes. Actually, no. Yes and no. Look, just like the video and subscribe, please. It does help.
Yeah.
Like what we've done said, click the all option. I don't want to make too much of a meal of that one because just since yesterday, I have been out of sorts over this one.
Yeah, I know. It's
confused.
This morning, ladies and gentlemen, Rich and I were going round in circles looking at this one, trying to make sense of it. And the more we looked at it, the worse it got, the more opaque it got, the more information there is, all conflicting, and suddenly it becomes very opaque because you can't see. And I that's why I sort of think that was the aim. Just seems that there's so much information out there compared to the to the Southport case. It's completely different.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Go on, Jeff. Go on.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we whittled on enough for tonight. So I hope you have a great evening and looking forward to Christmas. And I hope you're going to see friends and family. And this is a time with what happened last night. This is the time to tell them you love them. It really is. So don't shy away from it. Yeah. So please do. Cuddle up, say, I love you, shake hands, remake friends and all that sort of thing. Life is too short.
Yeah.
And on that note, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Good night.
Good night.